I'm in the business of helping people get funded, fundraising is really the failure to build a business without needing funding. So let's go through the beginning, which is SeedLegals data shows that founders invest £26,000 median of their own money into the business before they raise investment. So that's the bootstrapping part. So an investor won't invest just on a PowerPoint, you have to build something. Problem is, now you need to get a developer, and you need to get a designer, and you need to get a product person, and you can't afford it yourself. So the time to get investment is the time when your ability to fund it yourself is limiting the growth of the business.
No Bullshit Talks is a podcast for entrepreneurs by entrepreneurs. There's too much bullshit out there, especially when it comes to business. This podcast aims to highlight what's true and what's not in the world of entrepreneurship, bringing you honest and raw conversations about the roller coaster that is entrepreneurship. Each week, my guest will be a high-performing entrepreneur sharing the ups and downs of their journey and helping you prepare for the road ahead, while providing you with actionable insights and absolute gems of knowledge. Stay tuned as I introduce this week's guest. Anthony Rose is the founder and CEO of SeedLegals, the platform to join as a startup looking to raise capital. He's the man behind the launch of B2C iPlayer, but as a serial entrepreneur at heart, he created a solution to the problems that he found frustrating as a founder. He's helped over 50,000 startups get funded and has completely changed the way legal agreements are handled in startups. I present to you this week's guest, Anthony Rose. Welcome, Anthony, to No Bullshit Talks.
Hello, thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited to have you because not only are you an entrepreneur in your own right, you are helping entrepreneurs and helping them grow their business. And I just think that that's going to be the most insightful episode. And I've got so many different questions to ask you.
I'm looking forward to giving it a go.
I know. So I would love for you to just introduce yourself a little bit and just explain to everyone what you do.
All right, so I'm Anthony. I'm founder and CEO at SeedLegals. Years ago, I used to head up BBC iPlayer, then I left B, built a startup, sold it, invested in a few, got tired of paying lawyers, met my co-founder Laurent Lafitte, genius ex-VC serial angel investor, and got together to create SeedLegals so other founders don't have to pay lots of money to lawyers. So we're 160 people. It's like 50,000 UK companies on SeedLegals. Most of all UK startups are on SeedLegals. And about a third of all early stage fundraising in the UK goes through our platform. So I talk to thousands of founders, and I'm here to share any experiences, wisdom, and so on that I've gotten over the years or from talking to lots of founders.
It's so amazing. I can't believe that how many founders are on the platform, but it's actually just a no-brainer, right? Because it's why, like you said, and I think the best companies are founded out of a personal gripe that you find, right? And like you said, you were sick of paying all these lawyers. So as a startup, you don't have the thousands of pounds quite often to pay these legal fees. So you started the company. What was the moment you realised that this could be a thing?
Well, obviously, one of the nice things as a founder is if you use your own platform, right? If you eat your own food or ride your own bicycle, in our case, doing our own funding rounds and running our team on our platform. So all of our employment agreements, all of our share option schemes. But one of the things I realized when we created SeedLegals is when you go to a lawyer, the product they give you is a legal document. That no one really cares about a legal document. It's a necessary thing. But what you really want as a founder is help me find investors, or how do I give them their SEIS, or I've spoken to an investor, what to do next. So to me, ultimately, we realized it's all about empowerment and a solution. And the solution is data to show you what's market standard, so you're not the only idiot in the room pushing back against an investor. You can show them that 75% of the time this is the way it goes and so on. It's also videos to show you how to find investors, create a great pitch deck, and then it's an always-on platform. It's a billing model that doesn't go by the hour, and importantly, it's something that when you find an investor, you know what to do. And it's all about, there are all these unknowns. If you can just show people, actually, there's a standard formula. Every startup idea is different, but the formula for UK startups is remarkably self-similar. And by productizing that, everything becomes like 100x easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've got so many questions to ask. I don't even know where to start. I feel like the best place to start is, I guess, so many people talk about getting funded because obviously running a business is hard. Where do you find the money? It's almost like a chicken egg situation as well. And so the natural thing, people go, well, let's go get money from somewhere. Is it always the right thing to do that for a start? Because I think that people just assume I must go get funding. Like, what sort of businesses should go get funding? Are there any that should try to bootstrap it? And what are actually the downsides of getting funding?
Right, great question. So, although I'm in the business of helping people get funded, fundraising is really the failure to build a business without needing funding. So let's go through the beginning, which is SeedLegals data shows that founders invest £26,000 median of their own money into the business before they raise investment. So that's the bootstrapping part. So an investor won't invest just on a PowerPoint. You have to build something. The problem is, now you need to get a developer, and you need to get a designer, and you need to get a product person, and you can't afford it yourself. So the time to get investment is the time when your ability to fund it yourself is limiting the growth of the business. So, your life has a value as well. So if you're going to spend another 2 years kind of tinkering yourself and finding a co-founder, as opposed to getting someone else's money to grow the business at 5x the rate, you're far better off giving away some equity to do that. So the time to get funded is the point where your business, you've created enough value that the valuation is high enough that you can give away a modest amount of equity for the money you need. So now, in terms of getting money, well, what are the sources? You can go to Innovate UK, but the problem is the chance of most of those grants is tiny. The smart grants, what people didn't realize, the dirty secret was it had less than a 2% success rate. I mean, you can literally go to the casino, put your money on 26 Red, and have a higher chance of getting money than from Innovate UK smart grants. Wow. So they've ended that because it was insane. So the other thing is you can go to a bank. And the bank is great because you don't have to give away equity. You don't have anyone with shares in your business. But the bank's never going to lend you money because you don't have revenue and profit to repay it. Plus, you should never borrow money unless you can repay it. Otherwise, you're bankrupt. So getting loan is generally out, which means equity investment. So someone gives you money and you're giving them shares in your business. And here, many founders go, great, I'm going to dilute 15%, so sell 15% on average in the business at each funding round. And I slowly have less control over the business, but the business is growing. Some founders get paranoid. Oh my God, I'm going to give away something in the business. I'm going to try hard to give nothing in the business. But I think that's wrong. Because again, think about the next 5 years of your life. You want at the end of 5 years to have a business that's worth tens of millions that you can have an exit. If a part of that is to give away some of your business, you're much better to have 50% of a 50 million business than 100% of something that you're putting all your money into yourself, not being paid a salary, to then scrappily do everything yourself. So there's a trade-off, right? And what you want to do, and this is where SeedLegals comes in, is to set things up so you can sell equity in the business, but without giving away too much control. We've all read stories of Sam Altman and OpenAI getting fired by the board. Some founders go the other direction, is they want to make these super voting shares so you can't get rid of me. Literally 100% of the time I've seen people do that. It has to get unwound later because investors hate that kind of thing. Investors see lots of founders. And this is really ultimately the single bit of advice, which is any VC fund or any serial angel investor sees lots of founders. And if you fit the standard pattern, which is smart founders looking to change the world, usually with the B2B SaaS model, which can scale quickly, focused on a big market opportunity and execution to get there rapidly, you're in. But as soon as you're doing things that are weird, like I've made special super voting shares for me, or I'm a charity, or whatever it might be, or I've got asset locks on the business, it just goes into this is too hard. Next, please. Yeah. And so you're disadvantaging yourself.
Wow. I mean, it's so insightful to think, because I think thing that founders struggle with is giving up control in general. And I think the similarities are there when you're employing people, right? So it's the same sort of concept. You're saying, like, why stress all that, put all that energy in when, you know, you're going to be more profitable in a few years? Same thing, why do everything yourself if you can delegate and you could hire someone? But the lack of control, lack of giving away funds, it's a difficult thing for a lot of founders, I think, because it's their baby, it's their thing. But I think there's a few things there that I'd love to touch on. First of all, I thought it was amazing that you described getting funded as actually a failure, which I love, because of the narrative of funding is sort of like, we are successful because we got this. But actually you're saying if you actually could do it yourself, that's a better option in a way.
Right. Well, of course, life is easier,
Yeah.
but it's not possible unless you're independently wealthy. Usually on your second or third exit, you've now got enough money to go and do your next startup yourself. But, you know, you can't own more than 100% of your own business. So at some point it makes sense to not keep putting your money in, have someone else put their money in. And, you grow the business faster. The trick is to find the right level of control that you and your investors have. And what I've learned at SeedLegals is funding, like all contracts, over the years, over the decades, have developed into a sort of set of checks and balances between both parties. The investors are paranoid that the founders own 80% of the shares in the business and can do whatever they want. They could sell the business, they could pivot to something else. So investors want some controls. And founders are paranoid the investors will try and get rid of them. But realistically, in the early stages of the business, the founders have got 80% of the shares. They own the board. They've got all the power. And for the investor, the risk is all that the company isn't going to get to product market fit and is going to go bankrupt. So founders don't need to worry. When you get to Series A level and you've had several rounds of dilution, at that point, you may find that your equity is decreasing. But the trick there is not to dilute too much in each funding round. And 15% dilution after 3 funding rounds means the founders still have more than 50% of the shares.
Yeah. And I want to talk more about that in a minute, but I want to go, again, I'm going to try and cover all the bit of fundamentals, because I feel like the questions that I get a lot are even before that, because I think that there's so much confusion out there when it comes to funding. And I think I want to take another perhaps misconception, I don't know, I would love to clarify this, is about the type of businesses that need to get funded or should get funded or can get funding. Because naturally, investors love tech companies, ones that are scalable, ones that can go, like I said, 10x very quickly, and they can get a positive ROI after their 10 years. But does that mean that, it doesn't mean that anyone who's not a tech business is never going to get funded? What are the typical businesses that do well, and which are the ones that don't necessarily do or find it harder, and what can they do? Because like you said, some people, that's their only option right now, to get some funding. And if they're in a really difficult industry to grow, what are your recommendations? So which are the difficult categories, which are the easier ones?
Right, great question. One of the wonderful things at SeedLegals is to see the unbelievable range of companies. So in the Slack channel, as people sign up and start a funding round, I get to see, and I go look at the website, and it could be people doing a new form of pizza or a bakery or drones or deep tech, or something amazing like growing sargassum seaweed to sink to the bottom of the ocean as carbon capture. So these days there's a lot of AI, but what I love with SeedLegals is we're democratizing the ability for founders to fundraise. And now the important thing to note is, I think, 2 classes of things. One, are you investable in the first place as opposed to go to the bank? And number 2, what type of investors should you be targeting? So let's talk about investable in the first place. So if you go to the bank, they'll lend you money on the basis that they're going to make 5 or 8% interest, which means they have to have like a 98% chance of getting their money back. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. But your company doesn't have a 98% chance of success and can't repay them. So investors work on the basis that they're going to get 10x their money back, but half the companies they invest in are going to go bankrupt. So VC funds would look to get to 50x their investment. They do 20 investments. Statistically, there's something, a power law. And for a VC fund, if they make 10 investments, 5 of them will lose money, 3 of them will make a bit of money, and 1 of them will make 50x and what's called return the fund. So if you approach a VC fund, they're going to be looking for each company to be a unicorn or they're out. This is important to know because on the alternative, when you talk to angel investors, what's an angel investor? You're an angel investor. I'm anyone with a little bit of money from like £1,000 upwards can invest. And in the UK, if you know about SEIS and EIS tax benefits, this is essential to know as a founder. So it means when you talk to an investor, you can tell them if you invest £10,000, you can tax deduct £5,000 from your last year's tax return or this year's tax return. And if the business makes money and you keep your shares for 3 years, you pay no capital gains tax. And if the business goes bankrupt, you get to, claim loss relief. So SEIS fuels the UK startup ecosystem. And now you're going to talk to angel investors, and their investment is de-risked. Now, for an angel investor, and this is important because once you understand the risk and reward for an investor, then you know who to talk to. So an angel investor, imagine you're investing, $5,000 in a company. You might make 2 or 3 investments a year. So it's no good to say 1 in 20 of my investments will be a unicorn or whatever, because you're going to be bankrupt. You're going to be bored of investing well before. You want to have a high chance that they're going to make even a 5x return. So here's the thing to understand, which is if you're doing a deep tech AI that's going to need lots of money but could be a unicorn, VCs are a great place to go for funding. But if you're doing a new pizza or drone or some company that maybe not capital intensive, maybe more of a fast moving consumer good, a new kind of beer, maybe angel investors are the better place to go because you've got a high chance of having a moderately growing business. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you dial it right back and you've got a cheese shop, you're selling cheese. There are a lot of cheese shops. You go to the bank, you borrow some money, buy some cheese, sell the cheese, make some money, pay back the bank, and you grow your business. So once you see your business on the spectrum of steady state family business through to insane, AI startup, put yourself on that spectrum and then go find the investors that are right for you.
I want to talk numbers because I feel like you mentioned earlier valuation, and I talk to startups a lot, and obviously, like you're saying, that you need to have some kind of business activity for people to be able to fund them. But there are a lot of companies who are looking for funding and they haven't even started. And for example, valuations, everyone just seems to have a magical valuation of like £1 million, right? That number's just the clean startup valuation. Are investors not aware that this is somewhat bullshit? That where these numbers come from? How are valuations actually accurately made? And obviously the higher it is, the less you're giving away in the company, so it makes sense to have but if you're not doing that much activity but you've got this great business idea and you can't start it, really, the chicken egg situation again, where does this valuation number come from?
All right, so here's your 101 on valuations, because the answer is probably not what you're expecting.
Okay.
So you need to value your company when you are raising money for 2 reasons. One is when you talk to investors, they go, what's the valuation? Because that's going to affect the amount of equity, and that's for you the amount of equity you're going to give away essentially. So you have to have a valuation, although you don't necessarily if you use a seed fast, but we'll come back to that.
Okay.
So how do you pick a valuation? So there are a few methods you can use. You can look at TechCrunch and take at least a 0 off the end, because those are insane US valuations. Or you can go to your accountant if you've got one, and your accountant will go, are you making a profit? You go, no. Do you have any revenue? You go, no. Are you losing money? You go, yes. They're going to go, well, why is your valuation not 0? And by the way, I think your business isn't a going concern. You should shut it immediately. So accountants are useless for valuations because they're looking at past performance and you're looking for future potential. So there are also some websites where you can get a valuation, but to me, those are useless as well because it's garbage in, garbage out. So you go to a website and they use all sorts of complicated formulae to work out a valuation. But the problem is you put in some revenue projections. In year 1, we'll do £1 million. In year 5, we're going to do £100 million. But this is a bullshit number as well. So it's bullshit in, bullshit out, and investors know this. So where does that magical 1 million come from? And the answer actually is on SeedLegals. Over thousands of funding rounds, we've seen the formula, which is you dilute, you sell roughly 15% equity each time. So 15% means that you take the amount that you're raising, you multiply it by 5, and that's your valuation, your pre-money valuation. So it means your investors own 1 in 6 of the business afterwards, 16%, near enough 15. And that means that most funding rounds, you might be raising £200,000 and £1 million valuation. So it sounds all very complicated, but actually, once you take a step back and you look at thousands of rounds, you see a pattern. And the pattern in the UK goes something like this. Founders put some money into the business themselves because no one invests on a PowerPoint. Then you might go to friends and family and you might raise £50,000. And then you might do your classic angel funding round, raising £250,000. And then you do a classic seed round, raising maybe £800,000. And then you do a Series A round, raising £3 to £5 million. And the pattern is each time you're raising 3 to 5 times the amount of the last round at 3 to 5 times the valuation, such that the Anthony rule, after 3 funding rounds, hopefully you don't need to raise more, you're ready to exit or the business is now profitable. And if you do 3 funding rounds at 15% dilution, the founders still own 55%, so they still control the business. And now you see that standard formula. So that 250K SEIS round, well, money's not what it used to be a couple of years ago. It's probably $1 million valuation, now more like $1.5 million. But something like that. And so now the important thing is if you find that you fit the standard pattern, when you go to any astute serial angel investor, they go, oh, I see all these companies, they're all in these buckets for valuation, and if you fit this pattern, there's no friction. I either like you and your team and your mission, or I don't. But if you come to them with a valuation that's a bit like, you're in high school valuation, but you're still in junior school, they just go, there's a mismatch here. So one common mistake is people have no idea how to do valuations. They go, oh yeah, like 10 million. And the problem is you go to an investor and they go, interesting, nice pitch deck, what's the valuation? 10 million. And they know companies coming to them with a 10 million valuation are doing $1 million a year in revenue.
Yeah.
And they go, so what's your revenue? You go, oh, I don't have any revenue yet. Have you built the product? No. And they go, dude, why are you coming to me with this valuation? Come back later. And so the story of your life is come back later. Yes. And by the way, there's another problem with picking a high valuation. Often crowd investors who aren't experts at valuations, a bit naive. If somebody says the valuation's 10 million, it sounds desirable. And so they may invest. And then the company launches the product, and now they want to raise more money. But now they're kind of in high school, so they go to VCs for money. And the VC, who knows how to do valuations, goes, I'm sorry, this 10 million valuation was insanely high. We'll invest at a 5 million valuation. And that's called a down round. So your early investors have now essentially lost money because the valuation went down, and they're going to be pretty unhappy. So you want to keep your early investors happy by not picking too high a valuation.
Oh, I love that you've pointed that out, because I think that's going to be someone who's inexperienced with this, that's going to be a natural tendency to do that because you feel like, oh, I'm giving away less equity but raising the same amount of money, sort of thing. So they'll over-evaluate it. But it's great to know the dangers that can happen later, and obviously pissing off people who really invested you in early is not a good look. So.
Exactly. You've brought them on board, they're taking all the risk.
Yeah.
And it comes from a sort of naivety on founders that they just read TechCrunch and go, oh, someone's valuation was 10 million. They just pick a number.
But I would love to now talk specifically about the SeedLegals journey, because I think that loads of people would love to know, say they've been listening to this podcast now and they're like, right, I'm convinced. I need to go to SeedLegals. It sounds great. what do I do? So I feel like a lot of the businesses that I'm speaking to who are going through a raise, they're often mainly kind of, I guess, service-based business, or they're like property-based businesses. They're not necessarily products, which I feel like a little bit different, but, it's also different, as you said, all sorts of different businesses, SeedLegals. Save where now a business owner who's clueless with funding, hence they want the support from SeedLegals, but they don't have the money for big giant lawyers. They're like, right, I'm definitely going to join SeedLegals. What should they prepare before they join SeedLegals? So what would make their journey easier to have all the documents or even ideas ready? And then what is that journey like when you start SeedLegals all the way through?
All right, cool. Great question. So usually a couple of founders get together and have an idea. Sometimes they've been working on this for a while and now they want to raise investment, but sometimes, it's new. So the first step is generally incorporate your company on Companies House. Once you've gone from it's a hobby to this is a thing, incorporate. And there it's super easy to, create a business on Companies House, make 100 ordinary shares. Don't try and copy Zuckerberg and make super voting shares, because investors will force you to unwind that. And then the next step is you probably want to now find investment. So to find investment, you need to create a pitch deck. So there's a pitch deck template you can get from SeedLegals, and there's great videos and webinars. If you go to the resources section on the art of storytelling, I've done a webinar with the wonderful Claire McMillan. Claire's an ex-criminal barrister, now pitch deck coach. How come criminal barrister to pitch deck? Well, she says that in her years of being a criminal barrister, cases were very rarely won or lost on the facts. It was on the story, the art of the story, the art of the pitch. So she now coaches on that. So we did a webinar together. So one of the key things that founders really need to learn is the art and craft of being a founder. This is, comes well before legal documents, because when investors talk to you, if you talk the talk and know what you're talking about and have sensible valuations and can answer their question, and if they say, do I get drag along? And if you go, deer in headlights, what's drag along? Then you're at a disadvantage. But if you go, our drag along is 50% and we offer standard drag along and tag along rights, then they know that you know what you're talking about and they won't try and bullshit you. So the next step is you've got a pitch deck, and you now want to get your SEIS advance assurance. So you can tell investors you can get your tax benefits, which is the difference between I'm in and call me when you've got your advance assurance. So we help you do that. And something like 60% of all advance assurance applications in the world are done through SeedLegals. So we're experts at that. And then you now want to go and find investors. How do you find investors? Well, we've got resources on that. There are a whole lot of videos. You might use LinkedIn outreach. So you might start messaging people. Don't say, I'm raising £200,000 guaranteed returns. Can I send you a pitch deck? Because the person will go, delete.
Yes.
What you want to do is you want to find people. There's some tricks to use. So you may find, for example, other companies like yours that have raised investment. Then you can look on Companies House. You can look at their last confirmation statement. You'll see the list of their investors. You might then ping them. You might say, hey, I see you're passionate about this, or you've written articles on this, or you've invested in that. We're working on the next generation of that, or we've got an even better no alcohol beer. I'd love to tell you more, or would you like to know more? So something that indicates you've done your research. It's contextual, exactly personalized to that person, and with some message that invites them to want to talk to you. So you used to think about investor outreach like a Netflix series. The goal of episode 1 is to get you to watch episode 2. Okay. Then you're in. Yeah. So if you're too forward on the first episode, there's no second episode. Yeah. It's a story. So all of this is, it's nothing about legal documents. It's all about the art and craft of being a founder, figuring out the talk, walk the walk, find investors. And now you've got investors. You've got a potential investor. And now you go, great. So can I tempt you to invest 20K? And the investor goes, sounds great. I'm interested. Oh my God, what to do next? I go, yeah, thank you. So now SeedLegals is exactly there. Okay. So once upon a time, people did a funding round. A funding round is like a bus trip. You get all the passengers on the bus, in other words, all the investors, and you say, I'm raising £250,000. Let's say you're raising from angel investors, and they might invest £10,000 or £20,000 each. So maybe that's 20 investors. Maybe you've got some larger ones, there's fewer, but for an early stage round in the UK, it's probably going to be 10 or 20 angel investors. So now you have to find £250,000, which means that the bus is only going to go in 4 months' time once you find these investors. And you're going to say, all right, great, thank you, I'll put you down for the round and I'll call you in a few months' time. But you really want their money right now, because you don't want to wait 4 months to get the money. You want some money now, so you're going to hire somebody now. So there's now a newer construct called a seed fast. That's our industry name for it. And a seed fast says, I will give you money now, and you will give me money later at a valuation that we decide later. So seed fast is great because it means we don't need to agree the valuation now. Because if you're the first investor, you might go, well, if I'm investing at a 2 million valuation, what happens if other investors don't agree 2 million and want 1.5? I'm now the only idiot who's come in sooner. So seed fast de-risks it for the investor by saying, I'm giving you money now, and I will get whatever valuation you agree with the other investors later. But to incentivize me to come in now, you'll give me a 10 or 20% discount compared to the other investors. And this we call agile fundraising. So you can raise ahead of a funding round or top up a round in addition to doing a funding round. And agile fundraising has changed everything. 70% of all investment we see on SeedLegals is not in a funding round, it's ahead of a round with SeedFast or topping up a round afterwards. And so what happens, I think the funding round's like a bus trip and SeedFast are like an Uber. So we meet and you go, hey Anthony, love what you're doing, can I invest? And I go, sure, I will send you a SeedFast on SeedLegals for 10, 20K, great, stage, I'll go to my mobile phone, create one for you, you can e-sign it, and there's data to show what the discounts are and so on to offer. And that has transformed fundraising. And there's an equivalent in the US called a SAFE, which also has transformed fundraising in the US. And so that's the way to roll.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Like, it's amazing actually, and it shows you how many ways there are now to just get access for both sides, for investors to get to invest more, and obviously businesses to get funded. I have a few questions on the specifics though, because I feel like SeedLegals has helped out so many small businesses. To me, it seems like a no-brainer to use, but naturally to law firms doing this, they see you as an enemy and a threat, and they're naturally going to say things against you guys. It's not good enough. So the typical things that I would hear from a law firm are that you're not thorough enough, you're not going to check things properly, and you're not going to notice things for the founders. It's not specific enough, so it's all generalised. I'd love for you to address some of those, because obviously, like, you've helped, like I said, 50,000 UK startups, which is nuts. And they've all seemed to do fine from it. So what are those concerns they've had, and what can you say about those?
Well, I meet lawyers and they say they train to try and win business from SeedLegals. But what I like is companies start right at the beginning on SeedLegals and they don't make the mistakes that you make without it. So, one of the key problems that founders have is they split up. So you need founder agreements. So by showing you the right way to do things, that's good. When it comes to standards, or bespoke things, the concept of everything needs to be non-standard is insane. And that leads to the insane lawyer fees. Imagine you go and rent a car and you get out of the airport and your car's waiting. And if the pedals and the indicators and the steering wheel are in exactly the same place, you get in and drive. But if some manufacturer decided to move all the things around, the pedals are no longer there, and it's insane. So the same goes with fundraising. Investors make investments in a lot of companies and they want deal documents the same. You don't want each deal to be different. You want it to be the same because the fundamentals are the same. And so actually there are about a dozen key deal terms that are negotiated. So does the investor get a board seat? Obviously, what's the valuation? What consent rights does the investor have? And the idea is you've got standardized documents that reflect these things you negotiate. So what lawyers do is they give you a Word document, with 5,000 words in it, and your natural inclination is to open it in Word and like red line change, and you're changing these words. But that means both parties need a lawyer. I mean, we're in the age of technology and AI. What you want is you want to agree between us. You're going to get a board seat, and I'll need your consent on a sale of the company and so on. And then standardized documents are created. The reality is the 98% risk in a company is not that the articles of association have something that you didn't spot. It's that the company runs out of money. So people sometimes mistakenly think that the deal documents they get are like the Bible, this tome sent out from heaven that's going to last forever. No, it lasts for like 18 months or 6 months till your next round when it gets replaced. So this whole concept that things need to be different and bespoke is nonsense. They're meant to be the same because, imagine all the things you do in your life. You have to change your phone. You want it to be similar to the last one. You go to a different website. You want the buttons to be in the same place. Likewise, on a legal document. All it is saying is, you're going to give me money and I'm going to give you a return on investment. When these things happen, it's got a sensible balance of protections. And lawyers who want to change it on a case-by-case basis are either old world or jobs worth just trying to make work on a billable hour. And I think it's ultimately quite simple. If you're charging someone by the hour, your incentive is to make more hours.
Yeah.
If you're charging someone a fixed fee, your goal is to make it simpler.
Yeah. You mentioned about the mistakes that founders make, and that's obviously what you help minimize, which I love, because I do think that, like I said, there's so many myths out there about raising capital that, it's great to have a team to support you. What are the most common mistakes that founders make that you see? Because obviously, like I said, you've got 50,000 startups. Yeah. People must make lots of mistakes all the time. What are the biggest ones, and what should founders do to obviously avoid those?
Right. Well, the biggest mistakes, some of them are around legals, but the biggest mistakes are about product. So you have this idea, there's something that's been bugging you. My bike got stolen, I need a solution for that, whatever it might be. I'm going to make this AI-enabled blockchain thing, bicycle lock with GPS and Wi-Fi, whatever it is. And you believe that everyone's going to want it, and you don't do your research. So the number one mistake founders make, in my view, and I made it all the time and continue to do that, is you think the hard thing is building it. But it turns out that retrospectively, it was pretty easy building it. The hard thing was getting people to want it. So you put all this effort, you raise money, you get people to join you, you build it, and then a year or two later, you wake up in a cold sweat going, oh my God, nobody wants this. It was a vanity project. So the number one mistake is not validating it before you build it. And I think of it like this, which is, once upon a time, build it and they will come. Kind of like this gorgeous building. They built it and then hoped people would come. And then along came agile and minimum viable product. So you would make something simple and hope people use it. But now you can go further with Lovable and Cursor and AI dev tools, and you can actually make a very simple, you're probably going to have to throw that code away and recode it, but you can make something very simple that looks like the real thing, and you can test it. And by doing this, even with a weekend's worth of vibe coding, can now show people, and if they go, don't know what it is, or nah, not me, or actually I've seen 3 like it, you realize in no time that you have an uphill battle to try to get people to use it. But I think you can go one step further. And I like the concept is you write the press release, and if no one's interested at a press release, don't even build it. So imagine you go, I'm working on a new money-saving app for students that's going to do something. So you could spend a lot of time building it. You could spend a little time vibe coding it and hang out at universities and go, please try this app and see. And if people go, not really, you've just saved yourself a few years of your life. Or maybe they go, this is awesome. Or maybe they go, I don't understand what these things do. And then you come back next weekend with a better, improved version. But you might even go further and write it up as if it existed and show people. And if no one's going to write or publish your press release, it's means it's missing a shtick to stick out from the crowd. So number one problem, I think, is all about product testing and validation before you build it. Number two is not having a founder agreement. So founders get together in a pub, hey, let's do this, that's great, and it's a hobby, and no one pays much attention to things, and now you go on your first funding round, and suddenly you've got a nominal valuation of £1 million, and that means two founders, you may not even have agreed the equity split. Is it 70-30, 50-50? But now each 10% is £100,000. So suddenly things got serious. And now, if you get past that, you've got funding. And now you can't see eye to eye. It's taking a year or 2 years. Somebody's going to pay their rent. Your spouse is going, dude, you need to get a proper job. And so one of the founders leaves. Maybe 20% of the time or more, founders split up. And if the founders don't have a founder agreement with share vesting that says, if I leave, I have to give back some of my shares, they leave with all of their shares, and then the business is uninvestable. So, because no one invests in a business where half the shares are owned by somebody who's left. And worse, if they leave on bad terms, they might say, I own all this work I've done is mine, I'll take it back. So the company's screwed. So a founder agreement, which you can do on SeedLegals, is an absolute essential. And it's got a few provisions. It says, if I leave, then I have to give back some of my shares. It says all the work I put into it belongs to the company. So it's a concept that says the company goes forward and people can come and go. And when people message us on web chat on SeedLegals and say, hey, I've got a founder dispute, what to do? Our team reply, do you have a founder agreement in place? And if yes, great, let's look at what it says and then follow the next steps. And if not, it's kind of pistols at dawn because it gets acrimonious and the business often just falls apart. So doing that founder agreement, which is free on SeedLegals, is really an essential first step for any business. And investors are going to insist that you have that in place anyway.
Yeah, as I can imagine that, because they've got to obviously understand the stability of the company. They're definitely going to want that. I would love to also understand about, I guess, failure rates in that sense as well. How many businesses come onto the platform, set themselves a big funding goal, and then just don't make it, and what are the reasons for not making those goals as well?
Well, it's a good point. So I think a couple of parts of that question. One of them, people might want to raise more than makes sense for that stage of the business. So I think it goes as follows, which is, okay, how much money do I need to raise? So you take out a spreadsheet. I do this every few startups, and you go, well, I need two software developers, I need a designer, I need a product person, I need a data person, of course I need sales, and the two founders, okay, that's 8. It's, I think, always 8 people. So let's say I'm going to work on £50,000 a year, so that's £400,000 a year. I need to raise for 18 months, I need £600,000. Great. So £600,000 means a 3 million pre-money valuation, multiplying by 5. And now you go to investors and you go, I'm looking to raise £600,000 on a 3 mil valuation. And they go, awesome. How many users do you have? And you go, no, I haven't built it yet. And they go, well, love what you're doing, come back later. So you have to revise it down to probably £250,000 at £1.5 million valuation. So the first mistake is trying to think you're going to hire too many people and raise money for that, and you probably have to pare it back. The next problem is, of course, finding investors. So if you want to raise a few £100,000, you have to kiss a lot of frogs. And I think founders might give up too easily. The batting average may be 1 in 30 investors or 1 in 100 investors you talk to will invest. So, spray and pray is one technique. It's much better if you can obviously have a more targeted, warm outreach that gets a higher conversion rate. One common mistake is some investors or advisors say, it's just as easy to raise a big amount as a small amount. You should raise a big amount. This is the world's worst advice, because all that means is you go, great, I'm going to raise £1 million now because some naive idiot advisor told me that, who's not part of the journey. So you start talking to all these VCs about 5 or 10 million valuations, and they just ignore you and tell you, they look at you, it's like, why have you come to university when you're still at preschool level, and come back later? So if you think about time and amount you want to raise, you'd like to raise a big amount on day one, obviously. But you're going to be kissing a lot of frogs for a long time trying to find that magical set of investors to give you this big amount of money at a big valuation. Much better, in my view, because your life also has a value, to raise smaller amounts over time so that you can raise some money to hire a person to do some development and do some product design, and then use that extra product you've got to get a high valuation to raise more. And that's where seed fasts and so on come in. So instead of going, I'm going to raise £500,000, go, but if you're in for 20K, I'll take it today. And then use that to grow the business faster.
So helpful. And I'm just thinking about this all the way through. Depending on, obviously, they've got co-founders, a lot of people do, so that's why they need the founder agreement. Some people are also by themselves, they're solo founders. But even with co-founders, a lot of them are still going to be inexperienced. You've just given so much great advice so far. What sort of level of support can we expect from SeedLegals? So, for example, throughout the different stages of the process, founders are going to be making mistakes. They're going to be, because obviously I'm guessing you guys don't look at every single agreement, all the details, and find out what if investors are taking advantage of people? There might be situations like this, and they're going to make big mistakes. How involved do SeedLegals get, and what support and what level of legal support can we get from you?
Sure. So, it's mostly, what people mostly want, by the way, is commercial support. Sometimes it's psychotherapy support more than legal support. But the idea is you can always message us on web chat and we'll get on a Zoom call or whatever. And there's a spectrum. Some founders go, I don't need to talk to you. I know exactly what I'm doing. Just point me to the place on the platform to do all the documents I want. And some people need a lot of help. And the lot of help is, the mistake, I think, is people think they need help on the legal documents. But the legal documents reflect what you want to agree to as people in plain English. And you didn't need a lawyer to draft a Word document. There's a computer that can do that. So my goal is to help educate founders on what they want to do at each step. All the things we've been talking about now are the exact things that a founder needs to know. And none of them would come from a law firm, and none of them would come from a legal document. So now that you see the path, of course, the hard thing is find investors, and then you want something to show you which things you negotiate. But the short answer to your question is you hit us up on web chat. We may answer directly. There are videos, there's data, there's SeedLegals thermometer, where over thousands of rounds, we've shown the data for small, medium, and large rounds, which things to agree to and which to push back on. So, of course, helping somebody at great length on individually, we love to do, but it's not really scalable. So how can we take data, make videos to show you in your own time the formula, and then whenever you've got questions, we're here to help on that. And we're, you get an account manager, and our account managers and our customers tell us, hey, I just keep hitting up Andrew at any time of the weekend, and amazingly he answers and shows me how to do my account. I'm not suggesting you do that, but the team do that. So yeah.
I want to just touch on the bit about PR you said, because you said about press releases. How important is press when it comes to raising? Because I feel like I see loads of press releases which are like so-and-so raised X amount of money. And you talk about storytelling, how important that is as well. How important is a good PR and storytelling journey to getting investment and the whole investment process?
I think it's essential, but needs to be correctly targeted.
Okay.
So, of course, after you've fundraised, having TechCrunch run that you've raised money is nice, but actually almost useless. So the thing is, your customers are probably not reading TechCrunch, right? You sell bicycles, people who read TechCrunch are VCs in the US. There's no correlation. So you may find a vanity from getting this PR, but it's not doing anything for your sales. And worse, it may lead to this high expectation. So-and-so raised 20 million, that's awesome. And then later on, it turns out your investors all think that everyone in the world is using your service, and actually no one in the world knows about it except them. So PR can be negative, but what you do want is, of course, you want customers to know about you, and you want investors to think that customers are knowing about you, and you want to do that before the raise so that investors see you're everywhere. So I like the story of Napoleon. Supposedly, Napoleon was outnumbered by a much larger enemy army. And what he did is he sent some soldiers up into the hills at night, and they lit fires, and the enemy thought, oh my God, we're surrounded. It was only like a dozen people in a bunch of hills. So can you use PR, content marketing, blog posts, LinkedIn posts, and more to appear larger than you are? Because investors are obviously going to want to do some Googling to find out, okay, they say they're going to change the world. Has anyone ever heard of them? And if they Google you and your website doesn't even come up because you haven't SEO'd it and so on, and there are no other articles, you're obviously invisible. So you've got a mountain to climb. But if an investor Googles you and they see all these LinkedIn posts and magazines and publications that have got your articles and your website's filled with content, they go, amazing, you're everywhere. So you want to be bigger than you really are. And you can do that by paying people lots of money, or you can do that by writing content. And that's how I got started, writing content. There are hundreds of articles on the SeedLegals site and videos done by me. And I did it for two reasons. One, I really genuinely love helping people and sharing experience. Number two, it means that when people ask me questions, I've got a scalable way of answering. Hey, here's a video I did on that. And number three, it's just great content and great SEO. So now, if people search for SEIS, we rank higher than HMRC.
Wow.
Yes, great. That's the holy grail. So, write content. Get your team to write content. One of my SeedLegals customers makes green tea. I love green tea. So I went to their website. They got gorgeous pictures of green tea. But I was kind of disappointed. They could have had articles on the ideal water temperature. Should I put cold water in the hot water first? How's this tea made? What's the difference between first blush and second blush, whatever it is, Darjeeling? So had they had all of this content, firstly, it would have had SEO. Secondly, I would have seen them as thought leaders and trustworthy. And thirdly, it would have had more time on their website while I browsed and read these articles, and then maybe converted. So writing content is free. It takes time, but it's immensely valuable. And it also gets you to construct a story that makes sense for your users. If I can't write an article about how some SeedLegals product is going to help you, I probably shouldn't build that product. So content marketing, as it may be called, is step one. Step two, if you can then, PR is getting other people to start carrying these stories. But a lot of PR is their websites to just run PR stories. Nobody actually reads them except, Google search bots and so on. So that's not really useful. But you definitely want investors, when they search you, to start finding you everywhere.
Yeah, and I think that's just good standard practice when it comes to marketing in general, but it also leads me to think about now how much time that takes, right? So all of what you're saying is that constantly making content, you have to be on different platforms, you have to be doing all this sort of stuff. Now, I see a lot of content where people are talking to just people stopping people on the streets and you must quit your job, follow your dream, do all that, go all in. Because if they're just kind of doing it as a side hustle at the moment, they're employed, but they're kind of doing a side hustle, they're not dedicating all the time into it, so they're never going to be successful. What are your thoughts on this trend? Because obviously, do you think that everyone is meant to be an entrepreneur? You must see a lot of failed businesses doing what you do. And I would love to hear your thoughts on how many businesses you've seen and whether people should even do that sort of thing.
So that's the big question, right? Should you even give up your day job? So I read some statistics saying something like 27% of school leavers want to build a startup. And that's up from 2.7% a couple of decades ago. So the question is, are 27% of people the right mindset to be a founder? So when I see, whether it be COVID or Brexit or some war somewhere, and people going, well, I'm worried, I'm not sure how things will change, there's indecision, I should wait, you're not right for a founder. A founder would be going, all things are an opportunity. So to me, the attributes of a founder are you love taking risks, you love making decisions, because failure to make a decision is death for a startup. You go, well, should we launch in this territory? Well, there's nothing to. If you're in a large company and a question comes up, you can ask others. You can form a group, a committee, and form a view. As a founder, you kind of have to make a decision, maybe with your co-founder. Yes, we'll do it. No, we don't. If you go crazy and make yes for everything, you're just going to spread yourself too thin. If you say no to everything, because everything's a risk, you just don't have a business. You'll never start anything. So you should look within and go, do I love making decisions? Do I love a certain level of risk? I think also with an employee, if you don't like what you're doing, you can quit and do something else. If you're a founder, I think it's like having kids. I don't have kids, but if you have kids, you can't go like they're 2 years old, I'm a bit bored, can I give them back, please? It's just not an option. So you've made this company, you've got investor money, you've got people to join you, you have to do everything you can to make it a success. You've got the weight of the world on your shoulders, and you have to pick things to do when you don't know the answer. So, you've built it and you just don't have many users. Well, what do you have to do to find users? Do you have to add more features? Is it better PR? Is it better marketing? Is it updating the website? Do you have to get on calls with customers? If you don't like making those decisions, don't be a founder. If you love making those decisions, or you learn to love making those decisions, then being a founder is for you. So if you have a day job, how might you make that step? So one is, the mind the gap moment. I'll give up my day job and be a founder. Well, remember, founders put a median £26,000 of their own money into the business. So unless you've got some capital to fund it yourself for a while and not be paid for maybe a year or more, then you're not financially ready to do it, and you have to put some money away first. And that's important because, at some point your spouse starts going, how long will this be going before you start being paid? And maybe you paid a decent amount as an employee at some large company, but you're going to earn 30K initially as a founder from your first funding round until you get a bit later on. So being somewhat financially independent is also important. But it is really about that mindset. And it means that being a founder is for everyone. You could be an employee at an early stage company. And maybe that's one of the things is, you could just be the founding CTO or tech lead or join an early stage startup. And you'll see if you thrive on that level of sort of chaos and anything can happen and we can do everything and we don't need committee meetings, then it's for you. And if you want the comfort of a larger org, then you can go back to that.
I'm so glad you said all that, because I just feel like entrepreneurship is really glamorized at the moment, and it's people look as if they're having the best lives and like they're raising money and they see it's free money. That's why they see it a lot of time. And I think that it's encouraging people to just go into it unprepared and mentally unprepared as well, and it could take a real toll. So I think the little bit of dose of reality, hence the no bullshit version of what it is necessary. We're not being negative. It's just a way of preparing you for what's to come, because it's going to be hard work, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I just want to say a massive thank you for this. I feel like you've dropped so many amazing points here today. I don't know if you wanted to finish off with saying, like, if anyone's going for a funding round right now, if you had to, obviously you've given so many pieces of advice, if there's anything that hasn't been said, what would you say to anyone going for or thinking about going for funding?
Build a product that people want and solve a real problem. Because I think you see lots of AI companies these days, and they like AI for this and AI for this. Actually, the one thing I didn't mention, which is the number one, maybe number 3 mistake people make, is that if you look at their website, it says what they do rather than why anyone wants it. So when I talk to a founder, they explain passionately, mother, dialysis machine, something, change, medical, whatever, NHS waiting queue. And you go, that's amazing. And then you look at the website, and the website just says AI, blockchain, something, solving distributed logistics, and it's all mumbo jumbo. So you want your website to clearly explain, you've got this problem, we've got this solution. And if you can't get it in that form, you have to keep iterating and build something that people is genuinely solving a problem for people rather than just AI, for thing X.
Yeah. So start with why, as usual. That's what I feel like it is. It's great. Thank you so much for today. Thank you. It's been amazing. Thanks.